In preparing for this lecture on rhythm, I'm reminded of the pianist and pedagogue Patricia Zander, with whom I studied for a summer. Patricia was a much beloved teacher in the Boston-Cambridge area. Prominent among her select collaborators was Yo-Yo Ma. He would undoubtedly credit her as more coach than accompanist. We worked together that summer on the Beethoven Opus 111 and the B minor Liszt Sonata. Patricia was the musician who initiated me into the mysteries of subatomic rhythm, space and time. She showed me how essential it is to engage with music as a fabric to be molded into the most compelling state we can muster. She showed me how much more information was discernible within and behind the notes on the page, and how it was our responsibility as interpretive artists to infuse our performance with as much of this arcane information as can be conveyed in an unburdening way. Not in some arcane way, but with a palpable connection and interaction with the materials at hand, as flexible, frangible, thirsting for imaginative interaction and interpretation. Patricia insisted we acknowledge and be always aware of the silence between the notes, the dark matter which can expand and cause friction or inertia, tenuto or toe-shoed flight. Remembering Leon's second law, which posits our responsibility for how we pick up the note, we are in a constant state of deciding how to approach silence, how to end the note, abruptly or gently. And how do we leave silence? Leaving silence is the ineffable name of something, Patricia mentioned this a lot, something quite intimidating that we effortlessly achieve every time we begin a piece we know and love. I've only in the last year or so made prominent in my perspective and practice, but Patricia showed me the ineffable but essential concept of potential subatomic space between these blistering sixteenths, space which can be expanded as if their little note heads were beginning to fill with air, shouldering each other such that each demands more breadth, more to create a more imposing sense of mass and impending climax. I've come to manifest this visually in my head as larger or smaller note heads, sixteenths progressing properly, but then each note head expands, demanding more inertial force, physical space around it, each sixteenth sticking its elbows out more and more aggressively until the passage of time is expanded accordingly. Patricia was always inciting us to expand. Opus 111, and lots of Beethoven, has many passages of hell-raising sixteenths in its opening movement, marked at a very loud volume. How do we create a sense of peak, of climax, at the end of such an unremitting assault? If you're already playing as loud as you can, where can you grow? How do you make the peak massive and inevitable? We need to acknowledge and engage with the dark matter between each note, ephemeral or black hole dense according to our local awareness. Patricia was the first and only one who made this arcana of the unseen, these quirks of musical sub-nuclear reality, into practicable interpretive tools. Another of my teachers, Russell Sherman, noted that Beethoven requires 120% of our sound, wrought by only his infallible inner ear, Beethoven's, and technique. Beethoven always asks us to strain the limits of possibility. What Russell posited as the unreachable goal, Patricia illuminates pragmatically the matter of rhythm and the antimatter, the dark matter of negative space. I initially thought this would be an instructive lesson of how to deal with a seemingly unending onslaught of Furioso sixteenths. In preparing it, though, I realized how many tools we've already discovered which mitigate against the onslaught in a number of ways, contour dynamics being the most prominent escape valve to the relentless forte cascades. We still hit our heads on the ceiling long before we resolve into the second theme, as the tandem sixteenths rise into the decidedly fortissimo averse highest register of the piano. This is specifically where we enlist the expansion of dark matter between the notes to attain climactic resolution. funny, isn't it? How Beethoven, particularly in this piece, makes tempo markings kind of within the staff sometimes, so as if he's suggesting them more than he's being directive about them. When we cannot expand further dynamically, we can gradually, infinitesimally add dark matter between the notes as we build. The limit of such expansion and freedom is only the degree to which we can maintain the suspension of disbelief that these are still believable as 16th notes. We resort to the manipulation of the rhythmic fabric, the fabric of time, when we have reached the immediately apparent boundaries of possibility within the physical limits of sound. As I was working through this passage, I wanted it to be an example of expanding rhythmically, but there were so many other things that I started thinking, well, our falling tetrachord, to actually think about that rather than to knock them all out. And then using these eighth note staccatos to stick our elbows out a little bit more, to make that facilitative, to make that climactic. Responding to the A flat arrival. He's got those carrot stick staccatos on them, but I'm deciding to do those as Berlin staccatos, so that we get the incisiveness, but we acknowledge the lyric quality of the A flat major. And then yes, the only pedal mark that we have is on that fortissimo, introducing the second theme. So gosh, it's so fun to play the pedal. I haven't used one in a couple of years. Patricia taught me that our relationship with silence includes not only acknowledging the dark, malleable matter between notes, but the ineffable feeling preceding the very first notes of a piece. My favorite is the always audible intake of breath, usually edited out of most commercial recordings, but discernible before the downbeat of any ensemble recording Nicholas Harnoncourt ever made. You know, if he's doing the Beethoven symphonies, you hear before they start. I think it's wonderful. Another option is cursing the darkness, with a definitive crash. Works for something like the Tchaikovsky First Concerto, and even the A major fugue, our friend. But leaving the silence, as Patricia counseled, can be mysterious, a nearly inaudible incursion on the darkness. Leaving the silence can be a surprise, like some Brahms pieces I know that give us the sense of having suddenly opened the door to a grand ball already in celebratory progress. When we actively engage with the rhythmic fabric of music, we cease to be masters of mere amplitude or even the niceties of articulation. Now we truly engage with space and time.